Crystal Stewart.
MJ.
Nisha.
Deidre.
And Sean.
In my last speech, I visited with you about IRS tax fraud scams and why this interests me. My purpose is to convince you that more education and harsher penalties are needed to combat the rise in tax fraud over recent years. I've chosen two sources already. These two sources are important because they A, explain how to avoid these scams and not become a victim, and B, educate on what some of these scams look like and the penalties that the perpetrators receive when they are actually caught. My first source is a New York Times article detailing an operation based out of the US and India. This particular operation took place between 2012 and 2016. The article explains how during this time, over 15,000 victims in the US lost hundreds of millions of dollars. In addition to this, over 50,000 people had their personal information stolen and misused, according to the Justice Department. This article details some of the damages done to the victims, as well as give an inside look at how this particular operation was able to continue on for years without being detected. I will use this source to show an example of how IRS tax fraud scam functions with the many people involved. In addition, I will use it to inform the audience how devastating these crimes can be to the victims, as well as highlight some of the punishments that the criminals actually received when they were caught. This article really opened my eyes to how large some of these operations are and how long they can go undetected without being caught or shut down. My second source is the IRS website. This source informs on what can be done to prevent some of these crimes. It explains what the IRS will and will not do, including the ways they communicate with people. This source also gives steps on what to do when contacted by one of these scammers, as well as multiple ways to report tax fraud. I will use this source to give my audience more detail about how the IRS handles these tax situations and why people should not fall victim to these crimes. With my two sources, I was able to gather information needed, as well as establish another direction for finding my remaining sources.